My wife cheated on me with my best friend, then stole $250, $0 from our joint account to pay off his debts, and now she's claiming she deserves half of everything, including the house worth $2 million, in a bitter and shocking legal battle I never saw coming. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Emily, turned out to be the biggest nightmare I never saw coming. The craziest part. It all started with a stupid gut feeling that something was off, and then, bam, an avalanche of betrayal that shattered everything I believed about her, about us. You hear about these things happening, but when it hits so close to home, it's like your world just crumbles in an instant. Emily and I had been together for over 10 years. We weren't perfect, but I thought we had something solid: money, a nice house, a good life. She was always a bit bitchy, pretty sharp-tongued, but I figured that was just her personality. She had a way of acting like she was the queen of everything, especially when she didn't get her way. Still, she was beautiful, ambitious, and I loved her. Or at least, I thought I did. The first signs of trouble started about 6 months ago. She became more secretive with her phone, always hiding it when I came near. She'd brush me off when I asked who she was texting, saying it was just her sister or her coworker. I didn't think too much of it. Women can be like that sometimes, right? But then, she started working late more often, claiming it was just a new project or some client dinner. She'd come home smelling like perfume I didn't recognize, and her excuses got more elaborate. One night I decided to check her phone. I didn't mean to snoop, but I'd caught her lying too many times. I looked through her messages, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There were texts with a guy named Jake, my best friend Jake. They weren't just friendly, they were intimate, flirty, and downright disgusting. I saw her calling him babe and saying she missed him. The worst part: she told me she was at her sister's house that night. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't want to believe it at first, but the evidence was right there. Their messages talked about meeting up, about how much she hated the lies but couldn't help herself. She told him she was tired of pretending to be happy, that she'd never loved me the way she loved him. I felt like I was watching my entire life burn down in front of my eyes. That was the moment I knew my marriage was over, if it wasn't already. I kept reading, trying to find some shred of truth, some reason to believe she was innocent, but all I found was betrayal. And then I saw something even worse. A transfer of $250, $0 from our joint account to pay off Jake's debts. I don't know how she did it. Maybe she thought I wouldn't notice, or maybe she didn't care. But that much money gone overnight just like that. I sat there stunned, my hands trembling. My mind raced through everything. How she lied to my face, how she used me, how she was willing to drain our savings to help her lover out of debt. I felt a mix of anger and despair that I can't really put into words. This was no longer just about a cheating wife, it was about betrayal on a scale I couldn't have imagined. The house, the money, the years we built together, all of it suddenly felt like a lie. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it blindly. I needed a plan, a way to get some answers, and honestly, a way to take back some control. That's when I started thinking about revenge, about making her regret every single lie, every betrayal, every dollar she stole from us. But I'll tell you, that's easier said than done. So here I am, sitting in my office, staring at the evidence I uncovered, trying to piece together what the hell I'm supposed to do next. I never thought I'd see my wife turn into this person. I never thought I'd be betrayed by my best friend, my wife, the one person I trusted most in this world. And I definitely didn't think I'd be planning some kind of revenge just to even the score. But that's where I'm at now. This story isn't over, not by a long shot. After I found out everything, the affair, the money, the lies, I couldn't even sleep. My mind kept spinning, trying to understand how Emily could do this to me, to us. I felt this burning rage, but also an overwhelming sadness. It was like I was mourning someone I thought I knew, someone I loved. The betrayal hit me so hard I couldn't breathe properly. I kept thinking about all those years, our memories, our plans, and how they had been nothing but a facade. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a decision. I couldn't just sit around and let her walk all over me. I needed to confront her, but I knew better than to do it impulsively. I wanted to be smart, calculated. I started gathering evidence, not just her messages, but bank statements, emails, anything that could help me understand the full scope of her deception. I knew she was manipulative. She'd lie her way out of anything, so I had to be thorough. I remembered her bitchy attitude, how she always dismissed my concerns, how she'd brush me off when I questioned her. Now I saw her for what she truly was, a liar, a thief, a cheat. I also realized that her claims about deserving half of everything, our house, our savings, were just her way of trying to control me, to make me feel guilty. She was always good at turning things around, making herself the victim. I decided I needed to get legal advice. I contacted a lawyer, explained everything, and got a sense of what my options were. The house, valued at over $1 million. The money, gone, but I had the bank records. The affair, confirmed. The theft, undeniable. I knew she'd try to spin it, threaten me with a legal battle, claim she was entitled to half of everything because she was my wife. But I wasn't going down without a fight. In the meantime, I started planning my next steps. I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings. I wanted to expose her for the manipulative, dishonest person she was. I thought about confronting her directly, but I knew that might just give her more ammunition. Instead, I decided to gather everything I needed to fight her in court. I wanted her to see that I wasn't the naive husband she thought I was. One night, I caught her trying to spin a story about how she was mistaken, how she didn't mean to hurt me, how she was just confused. She was so good at lying, so bitchy about it, that I almost believed her for a second. But then I looked into her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, and I knew better. She was trying to manipulate me again. She said she deserved half because she'd sacrificed so much, but I knew the truth. She had betrayed me, lied to my face, and stolen from us. That's when I decided I had to cut her out completely. I couldn't let her keep controlling the narrative. I told her I was filing for divorce and that I was going after her for everything she'd taken. I wanted her to feel the loss, the pain of her own actions. I wanted her to understand that she couldn't just cheat, steal, and lie her way to a new life without consequences. The thing about revenge, I learned, is that it's not just about getting even. It's about reclaiming your dignity, your sense of self. I knew I couldn't undo what she did, but I could make sure she paid for it, legally, financially, emotionally. I also realized I needed to prepare myself for the legal battle ahead. She was going to fight hard, claiming she deserved half the house, half the assets. She'd probably try to spin it like she was the victim. As I sat there, staring at the evidence, I felt a strange mixture of resolve and heartbreak. I never thought I'd be the guy standing here, fighting for what's rightfully mine after being betrayed like this. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her ruin me, not without a fight. And somehow I'd come out on top. I had to. Over the next few days, I threw myself into action. I contacted a top divorce lawyer, someone who specialized in high net worth cases, and laid out everything: the affair, the stolen money, her attempts to claim half the house. It was a brutal process, but I knew I had to be meticulous. I gathered every bank statement, every email, every message she ever sent me that hinted at her deception. I even hired a private investigator to follow her around for a few days, just to confirm what I already suspected, that she was still seeing Jake, still sneaking around behind my back. It was infuriating. I'd trusted her, loved her, built this life with her. And she had been playing me for a fool all along. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deeply she'd been planning this betrayal. She manipulated me into thinking everything was fine, all the while secretly plotting her escape route with Jake. And the money? I found out she transferred $250, $0 from our joint account, money we'd worked hard for, just to pay off Jake's debts. I couldn't believe she'd do that, especially after pretending to be the perfect wife. When I finally confronted her with the evidence, her reaction was nothing short of shocking. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, the one that always made me feel like I was beneath her. She said, "You're overreacting, Mark. It's just sex, and honestly, you're not the only one who's been unfaithful. Maybe you should look in the mirror before pointing fingers." She denied everything, of course. Said Jake was just a friend, that she never cheated, that I was just paranoid. But I knew better. I'd seen the messages, the transfers, the lies. She then tried to spin the story that I was controlling, that I was jealous, that I didn't understand her. I could see her. Bitchy face twisting into a victim act, trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done playing her game. I was filing for divorce and I was going after her for the money she stole, plus full custody of the house. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, emotionally, financially, everything. The hardest part was the emotional toll. I felt a deep sadness, a sense of loss I couldn't shake. I loved her once. I thought we had something real. But now I saw her for what she truly was, a liar, a thief, a user. Her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, it all added up to someone I no longer recognized. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all this? How did I let her get away with so much? And yet, beneath all that anger and heartbreak, I knew I had a choice. I could let her win with her lies, or I could fight back. I chose the latter. I decided I'd do whatever it took to protect what was mine, my house, my savings, my dignity. I didn't want her to walk away with a single dollar more than what she deserved, nothing. I wanted her to see that her actions had consequences, so I moved forward with the legal process. I filed for divorce, served her papers, and prepared for the inevitable legal battle. I knew she'd claim she was entitled to half the house, that her sacrifices meant she deserved everything. But I had the evidence and I had the law on my side. I was ready for the fight. Still, every day was a roller coaster of emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness, and a strange sense of relief that I was finally taking control. Deep down, I knew this wasn't just about getting even. It was about standing up for myself, about reclaiming my life from someone who had lied, cheated, and stolen from me. Emily thought she could just walk all over me, but I wasn't going to let her. She might have thought she was clever, but I was smarter. I was going to make sure she paid for every lie, every stolen dollar, every moment she shattered my trust. And when this was all over, I'd find a way to move on, stronger, wiser, and finally free from her bitchy, manipulative grip. The court date finally arrived after weeks of legal back and forth. I remember feeling a mix of exhaustion and resolve. Emily showed up looking just as bitchy and confident as ever, her face painted with that fake smile she always put on when she was trying to manipulate people. She kept insisting she was entitled to half of everything. Our house, the savings, everything we'd built together, just because she was my wife. She had her lawyer spouting the usual bullshit about community property, contributions, and shared sacrifices. But I knew better. My lawyer laid out the evidence meticulously. Bank statements showing the $250, $0 transfer, her texts with Jake, the emails where she admitted to the affair, everything painted a clear picture. I saw her trying to spin her story, claiming she was just trying to help Jake out of a tough spot, that she didn't mean for the money to be stolen, that she was confused about her feelings. But I wasn't buying it. During the hearing, Emily's lawyer argued that she deserved half because she'd sacrificed so much, her career, her time, her energy. She even claimed she was entitled to a share of the house because she'd contributed emotionally and helped build the life we had. That made me laugh bitterly. Contributed emotionally. The only thing she contributed was lies and betrayal. I took the stand and told the court about everything. The affair, the stolen money, her manipulations, her bitchy attitude, and how she had broken my trust beyond repair. I explained how I'd been blindsided, how I'd given her everything, and how she repaid me with lies and theft. I made it clear I wanted to protect what was mine and that I wouldn't let her walk away with a dime more than she deserved. The judge listened carefully, asking questions about the evidence. I saw Emily trying to appear innocent, but her attempts to spin her version of events only made her look more guilty. When it was her turn to testify, she spun a different story, saying she was misunderstood, that I was controlling, and that she only did what she did because she was unhappy. Her bitchy tone and her constant lies were painfully obvious. I could see right through her. After hours of testimony, the judge made a decision. It was a win for me. She wouldn't get half the house, and the court ordered her to return the stolen $250, $0. She was furious, of course, and yelled some insults as she stormed out. but I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over, or at least the legal part was. The battle to protect what was mine was won for now. The aftermath was rough. Emily immediately tried to turn the tables, claiming I was the bad guy, that I'd abused her emotionally, that she deserved half the house because she'd sacrificed everything. She also threatened to fight me in court for custody of our kids, trying to paint herself as the victim once again. Her bitchy attitude was relentless, but I knew I had the law on my side. In the days that followed, I started to feel the weight lift. The house was mine, the money was safe, well, mostly, and I had taken a stand. I realized that the betrayal I'd suffered was a wake-up call. Emily's true personality had come out, and I had to accept that she was no longer the woman I once loved. Instead, she was just someone who wanted to manipulate, steal, and throw away everything we'd built together. Also learned something crucial. Revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. I promised myself I'd never let someone like her do this to me again. I'd rebuild stronger than before. And I'd make sure she paid for her actions, not just legally but emotionally, by refusing to let her define me anymore. The final step was to move out of the house, start fresh, and focus on rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy trusting again, feeling safe, letting go of the anger, but I knew I had no choice. I had to turn the page. The betrayal was a chapter I'd never forget, but it wouldn't define my future. I was done being the victim. Now I was the one in control, and I was determined to come out of this stronger. The months that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional fallout, and finally, a slow process of healing. I moved out of the house into a smaller apartment, trying to piece my life back together. The house, the million-dollar home we'd worked so hard for, was no longer part of my world. Emily had made her claims, pushing for half of everything, but the court's decision kept her at bay. Still, her bitchy attitude didn't fade. She kept trying to manipulate the situation, claiming she deserved more, calling me names, accusing me of controlling her. I stayed focused on rebuilding. I went back to work, threw myself into my career, and tried to ignore the constant barrage of her attempts to drag me down. I knew her game. She'd never stop fighting, never stop trying to twist things in her favor. That's why I kept my evidence close, consulted my lawyer regularly, and made sure I stayed one step ahead. I couldn't let her win, not after everything she'd done. One day, I finally confronted her directly. I told her I was done with her lies, that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I laid it all out. Her affair, the stolen money, her bitchy attitude, her constant lies. I told her she had burned every bridge between us, and I wasn't going to rebuild with someone who had betrayed me so deeply. Her response? She rolled her eyes, spat out some bitter remark about how I was just jealous and didn't understand her, and then walked out of my life for good. That moment felt like a relief, but also like a final blow to the relationship I thought I had. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. The betrayal had cut too deep. I had to accept that I was better off without her, even if it hurt. I started focusing on myself, on my kids, and on moving forward. I realized that revenge wasn't just about punishing her legally. It was about reclaiming my dignity and peace of mind. Looking back, I see how much I learned from all this. Trust is fragile, and people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face or a bitchy attitude. I learned that you shouldn't ignore the signs, secretive behavior, lies, manipulations, because they rarely go away without consequences. I also learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, is the only way to truly move on. Now, I don't have her in my life anymore, and honestly, I feel a lot better. The anger has faded, replaced by a cautious optimism that I can rebuild what I lost. I still have the house on paper, but I'm working on buying a new place, one I can make my own. I've started therapy to deal with the emotional scars, and I've learned to trust again, slowly, carefully. Most importantly, I want anyone reading this to know that betrayal cuts deep, but you can come out on the other side stronger. Don't let anyone manipulate or steal from you, financially or emotionally. Stand your ground. Fight for what's rightfully yours. And remember, revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your future. Because in the end, that's all we really have. Our integrity and the strength to start over, no matter how brutal the betrayal. Looking back now, I realize that this whole nightmare taught me more than I ever expected about trust, betrayal, and resilience. Emily's actions, her affair, her theft, her manipulations, stripped away the illusion of the perfect life I thought we had. But in the aftermath, I found something I didn't know I was missing, a sense of strength I never knew I possessed. I've come to accept that some people are just not who they appear to be. Emily was a master at hiding her true self behind that bitchy smirk, pretending to be the loving wife, the caring partner. But underneath it all, she was just someone who lied, cheated, and stole to get what she wanted. Her betrayal was a brutal wake-up call that no matter how comfortable or secure you feel, you can never truly know what someone is capable of until it's too late. What I've learned is that revenge isn't about petty payback or acting out of anger. It's about reclaiming your dignity, setting boundaries, and making sure you don't let anyone manipulate or destroy you. Legal battles, the fights over the house, the accusations, all of that was necessary. But the real victory was in taking control of my life again, in refusing to be the victim anymore. Now I focus on the future. I've started rebuilding from scratch, buying a new home and working on healing the emotional wounds. I've learned to trust again, but differently. I'm more cautious, more aware. And I know that true happiness comes from within, not from the approval of others or the illusion of a perfect life. Most importantly, I want anyone reading this to understand. Betrayal hurts, but it doesn't have to define you. You're stronger than you think. You can survive the worst and come out better on the other side. Trust your instincts, protect what's yours, and never let anyone steal your peace of mind. Because in the end, the only person who truly has your back is yourself. And that's enough, if you believe in it.